Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome millennial TEDx speaker Jake Ducey.
Principles just came out the other day, and there's like this incredible, like really happy, awesome side of releasing a book that's probably easier to imagine. And then there's this really awful, tense, dark, shadowy side that you plummet to. Most people don't know that side, and that's because most authors, actually all, are addicted to their Amazon rankings. And it's like this conspiracy by Amazon, because what they did is they update the rankings in real time, which means that I know that because sometimes I will press the refresh button on my browser for 24 hours because they update them every 60 seconds. And my addiction to my Amazon rankings started with my first book, Into the Wind. I was 19 years old, and I was so excited. My book is out, and it magically made its way to the top 300 onto Amazon. And I ran downstairs, and I was like, I'm going to go tell all my friends that, guess what? I'm a famous author now. I just made it to the top 300 onto Amazon. And I ran back upstairs, and I had to take a screenshot on my Mac. And the reason I had to do that is because for 60 seconds, I was ahead of Eat, Pray, Love. For 60 seconds, I was ahead of Into the Wild. And that's how crazy our brains are. Like, it made me somebody because Amazon made their real-time rankings, so I was able to be ahead of them. And then somebody opened the door, and I was like, get out of here, I'm looking at my Amazon rankings. And I locked the door, and then I sat in my room, and I printed them out because it matters to me. You know, whether I'm 307 or whether I'm 312. And I printed that out, and I framed it on my wall, and I just looked at that piece of paper. And I went to bed that night knowing that I was the best author in the world at 11:47 a.m. on April 16, 2013. But when I woke up the next morning, that feeling was gone. This hollow, dry, gray, ashy feeling in my mouth, like trying to grasp at a whisper of wind and pull that back into my pocket, but you can't. Because the rankings, because the numbers, it's not real. It's the house of cards. I sat there on the corner of my bed the next week wondering what to do. And then my author royalty check came. I was 20 years old, and I got a check for $10,000. It was the biggest check I ever got in my life. I opened that up, and I saw it said, 4 books sold. And I knew, yeah, 4 books sold. I was, for yesterday at 11:47, I know I was the best author. And I went to the bank. And at first, I rolled down my window while I was driving, and then I rolled it back up because I was like, people might recognize me. I'm famous now. So I rolled the window up, and I walked into that bank. And I walked up to the ATM, and I was like, all right. And I was, oh, yeah, I need to endorse my check. And I was like, everyone probably knows who I am now, so I just signed my first name instead. And I walked up, and I was like, okay, here it goes. And I went up to the pin, 18, 28. And I think I would just get so wrapped up in the story, I didn't realize that when I say my pin number out loud, so don't tweet that or anything. And I was so pumped up. I was like, what am I going to buy? What am I going to do now? And I drove back in my car. And I went home that night. It was gone again. That feeling was gone. Has that ever happened to you? You put that paycheck into the bank, and you're so excited, and then it just turns into a number that doesn't love you back. Wonder, is there something else here? And I sat there confused, wondering, like, what am I going to do? Why did I write the book in the first place? Lake Adelon, Guatemala, the first place I traveled to. I remember coming down those hills those green rolling hills, and I was in the back of a white taxi. The driver, his name was Pablo, and he had a Bob Marley shirt on. He hardly spoke any English, and we were coming down into Lake Atitlan, the 3 San Pedro volcanoes that imploded on themselves hundreds of years ago to form the deepest lake in Central America. I remember looking around 12 villages around this lake, and you take a dinghy around to get to the rest of the villages. That's how it is. And I remember on the back of this little dinghy, it broken, at least I thought it was broken, little dinghy, and we get over to the town, San Marcos. This old, rustic, wobbly dock, and I get off the dock, and I'm so excited, and I see these kids, and they're greeting me, and they're so happy, they're so excited. And I get closer, and I see they have cuts in their mouth. They have unkept, unclean cuts on their arms. Their shoes have holes in them. They're wearing the same clothes day after day after day. They have nothing that they should have, the things that you and I can give to people around the world. And then I saw this pregnant woman that was going to be having a baby soon, and she didn't have a home in order to put her child anywhere. But at the same time, they were still so happy, so excited about the opportunities that they have. They were inspiring me. It was amazing. And that's why I wrote the book. Because I wanted to be someone that would uplift the world. I wanted to be someone that could do something about it. And so I got in my car, rolled the window down, drove over to the bank, and I walked up to the teller. And I said to her, "Hi, I would like a cashier's check." And she said, "Well, how much?" I said, "Well, last week I came in here and I deposited a check for $10,000. And I would like every dime for that." And she gave me the cashier's check, and I walked out, and I walked over to the post office. And I took out my blue pen, and I signed my full name on the back of the cashier's check. And I remember writing it out. I wrote it to the chief of the village down there. And I wrote a note. I said, "Use this for the kids." And every part of me was like, "Don't give that away. You need it. Don't do that. You can't give it away. What are you doing? You're going to ruin your life." And this other part of me was like, well, maybe life was about something more than the ranking, than the paycheck, than being number one, than the next number that goes into the savings account. And though every part of me didn't want to do it, I dropped it in to the mailbox. And I walked away like I was like 2 feet taller. It was like, and I realized that I actually did grow 2 feet after that. And that feeling wasn't gone the next day. The next day, it was there. I had this meaning, this sense of purpose. So when I got my next royalty check, I decided that I was going to send it to that pregnant mother so she could build a home. And that's when I discovered that real meaning, that real purpose, that real way that we can create real change in the world, because we can do it. That purpose I was looking for, that came from giving more acts of care. More acts of care, large, small, give a gift, give a smile. That's where that meaning came from. So I was so honored for the opportunity in order to speak at this event, because that's what it's about. On your guys' day off, you're coming in here on your day off, you're going out knowing full well that this is about more acts of care. So go on and please give yourselves a round of applause. Now I want everybody to turn to the person next to you, and I want you to smile at the person next to you. Share a smile with the person next to you. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. You can do it, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. The other day, I was walking down the street late at night where I live in Hollywood, and I turned down this street, and I was like kind of felt sketchy about it. There was no street lights. It was really late at night, and I turned the corner. And I saw a homeless encampment over there. And every part of me was like, oh, don't go that way. And I saw this guy out there, and I was like, something in me was like, don't connect with this guy. And I got a little bit closer, and I was trying to avoid him. I was walking like this with my head down. But I had to step onto the sidewalk. And when I stepped onto the sidewalk, he was just staring at me. I'm like, oh, he's going to ask me for money. I can't get money. And he's standing there like this. No teeth in his mouth. And I couldn't help but smile back at this man. It was the only thing I could do. The next 15 minutes after I got over my guilt and my shame of not being in accord with my own message, when I realized how often I want to disconnect from someone, that's what the world really needs, is more people who will care, more people that will acknowledge one another in the office, on the street, on our ways to work, when we're in an area we don't want to be in, like you may be in today. That you may be in an area where you kind of feel uncomfortable, that the power that sharing a smile can give. Change my day. You can change someone's day. You can change someone's week just by simply acknowledging them. Something that costs nothing but can give so much. And I kind of look a little bit different. I might have longer hair than a lot of the women here. And so my friends back home in Southern California, they're like, how do you dress up for a corporate event like this? Like, senators are speaking before you. Do you even have a shirt? Last week you got kicked out of the coffee shop for not having shoes on. And I always say, I feel dressed up when I have my smile on, when I can just give that smile, that acknowledgement. But I did get a brand new suit for this event. And we've all heard these stories about caring, and so I want to share something deeper that I discovered while I was writing my new book, The Purpose Principles. It's just about finishing with it, and I got a phone call for a charity event. It was a charity event for a really famous Hollywood producer, Tom Shadyac. He produced Liar Liar, Ace Ventura, Nutting Professor. He launched Jim Carrey's career. So I was super suspect. Like, what is he going to do? We're going to show up. He wanted to go to Foster Elementary in Compton, where these kids have nothing, and he wanted to do a day of service. And I was like, what is he going to do? Like, I'll pull up in his limo, and he'll roll the window down, blow a cigar in my face. I'm like, yeah, it's okay, man. And he hands me this big check, and he's like, take these kids, and you stay away from them. And I go over, and I have to, hi, this is for Tom Shadyac. Well, where is he? Well, I don't think he feels that well. And he drives off and throws his cigar on the ground. I was kind of skeptical. And when we got into that asphalt for the elementary school, and this huge semi-truck came out with 350 bicycles, 350 helmets, I realized I had the wrong expectations. We pulled all these bicycles, all these helmets out, set them all up for all these kids that weren't going to get a present. They weren't going to get anything. And we set them up. We're placing the helmets on. Okay, some kid's going to ride this. Make sure the seat works. Make sure the chains work. And then the bell rings. And the kids come out. And half the kids come out, and they're covering their faces up. And I'm like I didn't know, what did I do? And then the other kids come out, and they're just oh! And they're screaming and running towards their bicycles, and they're so excited. And everyone's crying. All the parents are there. Everyone's bawling. And then Tom Shadyac comes up to the microphone. I just want to let you guys know that I didn't come here to give you bicycles. We did not come here to give you a gift. We didn't come here to give you a toy. We came here to let you know that your life matters. We came here to let you know that we care about you. We came here to let you know that you may be one of these 15 million young people around the world that lives below the poverty line. You may think your life doesn't matter. You may think nobody cares about you, but we care about you. You matter. Everyone was crying. And that was when I realized that I shouldn't have the expectations that I have about other people. Because you know what that guy showed me? He showed me that giving isn't about the thing you buy. It's not about giving somebody an object. Right now, we're in a world where most people don't feel safe. They don't feel they're cared for. Just on the streets in Washington, D.C., So many people aren't sure if when we walking by and we have our homes to go back into and we have our warm clothes, they don't know if we care about them. And we have this opportunity to do that. That giving doesn't require giving something. It's just more acts of care. Large, more acts of care, small. That's what it's about. That's where that deeper meaning, that deeper purpose does. To take 5 more seconds out of our way to ask the cashier how their day is, to smile at someone, to ask the homeless person how their day is, to ask the person in our office that may look stressed out, smile at them. And you may be thinking like I was, like, well, I'm not a mega millionaire like Tom Shadyac. I can't go give 350 bicycles. I can't go give 350 helmets to people. So I want to introduce you to my friend Gabe. My friend Gabe's like about this high, and every day after school, he runs home and he runs into the pantry and he grabs a bag of Cheez-Its, and then he jumps onto his couch and he plays video games. My friend Gabe's 9 years old, and my friend Gabe wears those vest parkas. They're not the full vest, they're just the parkas. And he goes into school for his first day of 3rd grade. And he sits down at his desk and he says to the person next to him, like, hi, what book do you like to read? Because he loves reading. And she says, well, I don't read. And he says, you don't read a lot? He says, no, my parents don't have money for books, so I don't know how to read. And he goes home that day. And he goes home and he says to his mom, Mom, there's this girl that sits next to me and she doesn't have any books. She doesn't even know how to read. Her parents can't afford books. His mom says, son, I know there's many people in the world like that. You're very lucky. He says, well, I want to go build libraries. I want to go get books for kids. She says, son, you're 9. You have class tomorrow morning. He goes into the principal's office the next day, and he organizes a book drive. Gets a few hundred books. Next week, some people in the community start to find out, a couple thousand books. Not long after, some people with money start writing him some checks. In 2 years, he's put together over 15,000 books in libraries all across Central America, all through Southern California. And what I learned by that is that giving, making a difference, there's no requirement for it. It's not limited by age. There's so many young people here today. Don't ever let someone tell you that you're too young. You're not too young. Giving has no age restrictions. Giving has no financial restrictions. Some of the poorest people, quote unquote, in the world have made the biggest contributions to the world. That you don't need that money in your bank account to go out there and make a difference in your workplace, in your community, on the streets. And that's why I was so honored to come here today, because that's what this is about, more acts of care. And I can't help but to think about Washington, D.C., the March on Washington. We all know Martin Luther King was there. But I think someone that I was surprised that was there was Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson, someone who broke down all the restrictions in professional sports. Someone who broke down the race barriers. Someone who day in and day out faced threats on his life, faced threats against his family. Imagine being the first baseball player to walk out there. He picks up his pine tar off his bat. He walks out there. He steps into home plate. Coaches for the other team are yelling at him. Everyone's telling him to get off the field, but he didn't. He knew his why. He knew what his purpose was, what his calling was. When you know your purpose, when you know your calling, no age restriction can stop you. No fear can stop you. Other people can't stop you. You know why you're here, so you call on these dormant forces that we all have within us, that are being asked for us to call upon within our communities. And the same was so, of course, for Martin Luther King. As we know, he died on April 4th, 68. On April 3rd, 68, he gave his mountaintop speech. I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen the promised land. I will not get there with you. But for tonight, I'm fearing no man. I had the opportunity to share this story with Miss Wright, and I said, I believe he knew he was going to be getting killed. I know I'm not going to get there with you. She nodded her head, absolutely. This was someone who knew he was going to be getting killed. Yet he knew he had this calling to go out there and share his light with the world and to give more acts of care. And he knew it was his calling, so nothing could stop him, not even the fear of death. And we don't need the next Martin Luther King. We can send a message around the world in minutes. We can do all of these things, whatever it is your passion is, your interest is. Because the world needs more acts of care. It needs more of us that will go out, whether you want to build libraries, clean up trash, help the homeless, or just be a positive person in your workspace. The world needs more of us. The world needs you. The world needs me. The world needs everyone here. It needs us to go beyond our age and all these restrictions that we think we have. Like Martin Luther King said, the meaning that we're looking for will come when we can cast off our personal concerns for the broader ones of those around us. And the question that he asked is, what are you doing for others? Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak here. I'm so honored, and thank you. I hope you guys have a wonderful time today.